Right, good. Well, it's no more questions. Then I'd like to introduce Joe. He's already given a little bit of information about his.
Yeah, Jolyon to you. I'm joking. Sorry.
All right. Yeah. Now I'm going to call you Jolyon.
Yeah.
Right. So Jolyon, are you ready? All right. So
I'm ready, Kevin. So the way I like to talk about my business, and I enjoy talking to people that know about business rather than talking to people that haven't got a clue. So, and I can tell from just the conversation that all of you guys know something about business, which makes it a lot more pleasurable for me because I don't have to go through the bare bones, and it also gives me the opportunity of you being able to stop me and ask me questions whenever you want. So. Louise, I could have done with you 8 years ago because I didn't do any of that when I started my business. So in January 2012, I got fired. So it wasn't the first time I've been fired in my career. It was actually the 5th time I've been fired. And I got to the point when I started recognizing the look that people have on their face when they're just about to fire you. I don't know if has anyone been fired on this group. Can you? None of you. Oh, thank God! Thank God! Thank you for saving me.
I've fired a few.
People have a certain look, and it's almost one of a little bit like, oh God, this is awkward. I wish I didn't have to do this. And I got to the point where I recognized that look far too often. I've always been quite outspoken. I've always thought that I knew the best thing to do in a business. I always thought that I knew better than my boss, and I always didn't have the capability of holding it in. So in hindsight, I've got a couple of people that have worked for me that are like me, and they're bloody irritating, and they're disrupting, and they're not very good for your team cohesion. They're the people that always think they bloody know best. And I was one of those. And I think Hannah will probably say that I still am one of those. And so this guy fired me, and I went home, and I was on my drive home. I was like, do you know what? I've had enough of this being fired. And the only way that you can really guarantee that you're not going to be fired again is by starting your own business. So I bowled through my front door to my partner and said, I've got some great news. I've been fired again, but I'm starting my own business. And she kind of looked at me in this withering look, like, oh God, really again? And she said, I've got news too, I'm pregnant. And I literally was like, my first words on hearing that I was about to become a father was, oh shit. And so we had a bit of a chat, and then I said, well, I'm still going to start my business. And she, to her great credit, said, okay, well, yeah, you go ahead and do that. So it was post credit crunch, early 2012. Banks didn't want to lend to anyone. And I went around every bank on the high street, contacting everyone I possibly could to try and get meetings and ask them to lend me money to start a mobile phone accessories business. I'd drawn up the P&L myself, which was sketchy at best. I'd made up a cash flow, and I had very few ideas other than that, apart from I was going to buy mobile phone accessories from China, and I was going to sell them to UK retailers. That was it. Now, you hear about these people that never start businesses because they don't have an idea. I didn't have an idea. I started a business. And so I think when I talk to fellow people like me, they all say, yeah, you don't have an idea. You just start a business, and then, hey, necessity is the mother of invention. All banks said no, like just no. I think RBS was one of the worst ones that they said they wouldn't take a meeting and suggested I went and got another job. I think that's what the guy said. Until I came across a guy called Peter Rogers, who was an old school bank manager who worked for Lloyds Bank. He took my meeting, and he sat down in a meeting room in Oxford and took all the information and said, basically said to me, look, everything in the computer here says no. So, and I was like, okay. And he said, but there's something about you, young man, so I'm going to give you a shot. He went away And some weeks later came back with a proposal, which was to give me £100,000 overdraft to start my business. And I was just instantly, oh my God, that's amazing. I'm almost rich. I'm never going to be fired again. And he said, but I'm going to need an open-ended personal guarantee. Has anyone signed into one of those before on here? They are the most miserable documents you've ever seen in your life. You have to go to a solicitor, and then the solicitor has to sign to say that he's told you not to sign it. It's one of those documents, and then so everyone's out, and you're like, okay. It felt a bit like in the Jungle Book, where there's the snake with the eyes that they say, trust in me. It's like, okay. So I signed it. And then he said, okay, but I'm going to need more security as well. So you're going to have to sign over your house. So I wasn't married to my partner. So I had to go home to this heavily pregnant, slightly doolally woman and say, look, you need to go to the solicitor and sign over your side of the house. I need to sign over my side of the house. And if I don't make it work, then we're not going to have anywhere to welcome the little child that's in your stomach into. And to her, again, great credit, she said, yes, where do I go? And that was one of the defining moments in starting my business, because that's when it became real. Everyone had got out of their way. Everyone had got behind me, and everyone had said, yes, we're going to do this. So on the 1st of August 2012, to a great applause of absolutely no one, I opened my warehouse doors in the cheapest part of Coventry, which I Googled the cheapest place you could get a warehouse, and then I went to the worst part of that city. So I opened my business. The first incarnation was called Gusto, and I opened it, and I had a warehouse, so I thought I'm going to need a warehouse manager. So I employed a warehouse manager. I then said, well, I'm going to need someone to help me in sales. So I employed a salesperson, and then I employed a finance girl. And there we were, 4 of us, no customers, no business, in a warehouse in Coventry, sketchy internet, phones that didn't really work, and no real idea what we were doing at all. So the first month was pretty miserable, but to cheer me up, on the start of the second month, 1st of September, my first daughter, Elizabeth Betty Bennet, arrived, and created an environment where there was absolutely no sleep whatsoever for me starting my business. In my first month, I called retailers. I was speaking to all the factories that I'd met very briefly in China, and I was trying to get someone to do something with me. Everyone ignored me, everyone. And what a terrible, so what an awful time to launch a retail focused business. I mean, Christmas is done in August. No one wants to talk to you. So I launched my business in the worst time possible, with overhead that I didn't need, in a part of Coventry that was an absolute shithole. And there I was, calling people, not returning my calls, having no sleep, my partner going increasingly crazy, a miserable time, said with a smile. Okay, so I lost £10,000 in my first month. And then in my second month, I lost 15. So I was, end of September, I was £25,000 through my 100,000. In October, I lost another 15. No retailers, no calls back. And all I'm doing every day is going to my office in Coventry and hammering the phone, calling retailer after retailer after retailer, leaving message after message after message, sending emails, going on LinkedIn, like doing absolutely anything I can do in order to make contact and make somebody listen to me. And so I was, I think it was at the point where I'd lost 50,000 of the 100,000 overdraft. So I was £50,000 overdrawn. My salesperson, when she got paid at the end of the month, she just sent me a text saying, I quit, it's never going to work. And I got this text, and it was early October, and I was just like, God, really? You realize when you're running businesses and when you're in a senior team, it's incredibly lonely. So with this text tucked deeply into my back like a knife, I went to work and I carried on bloody ringing retailers, and I carried on leaving voicemails. I was getting nowhere, and I know it sounds bleak, but it genuinely was. Mid-October, when I was close to losing another 15,000 that month. I drove home back from, I was living in Oxford. I drove all the way from Coventry to Oxford with no music on in my car, and I just cried. I realized that I was at my lowest ever. I sobbed. It wasn't actually as dramatic as that, just tears streaming down my face going, what have I done? What have I done? What have I done? What have I done? And I had a chat with my partner and said, this isn't going well. And she said, yeah, I kind of got that impression. And she gave me some really good advice, which I passed on to people that are starting businesses since then. And she said, like, sometimes all you can do is just get up and go and keep trying. And if you do that, do you know what? You're doing your job. Just get up and go in the morning. So the following morning, I got up, I was in my office at 7:30, as I was every morning, and started calling people that weren't there and weren't interested in talking to me whatsoever. Came third week in October, and I got a call. The phone, probably for one of the first times, rang in my office. And it was like this moment, like, what's that? The phone's ringing. And it was a woman called Annie Chai from John Lewis. And her opening gambit was, hi, is that Joe? I said, yes, it's me, hi. And she said, it's Annie from John Lewis. You are ruining my life. And I was, okay. She said, you've left me a message 4 times every day for the last 8 weeks. It was something like 9 weeks. And you're telling me what the time is, and you're asking me to call back, and you're torturing me. And I said, well, Annie, thank goodness you've called. I've got this wonderful opportunity. I've come up with this idea for a brand called Juice, which is a mobile phone accessory. I'm going to make mobile phone charging fun. It's going to be so interesting. And she said, look, can I just stop you there? I'll make you a deal. We do once a year at John Lewis, we do a Dragon's Den style day. You go to this meeting in the head office. You get to pitch to the entire consumer electronics senior buying team. And they take brands forward for launch the following year if they like them, and if they don't, they don't. And she said, I'll put you forward for that, but the deal is if you fail at that pitch, then you never call me again. And I took that as like, oh my God, Annie, thanks so much. I won't let you down. I was convinced this was my moment. It came to the morning of the pitch, which was mid-November, and towards the end of November, and it was a rainy, horrible grey day. I woke up in the spare room because I decided to get away from my darling Betty, who was screaming the house down, and try and get some sleep. And I woke up in the spare room and put my suit on, got all my stuff together, and got on the train with plenty of time towards Paddington Station. And I'd planned that I was going to get on the Underground. It was only £3. I'd completely run out of money by this point. It was only £3 and I'd be able to get the train and go and do my pitch. As we were rolling into Paddington Station on that rainy November morning, it came over the tannoy that a person who was having a much worse day than me had killed themselves on the Underground. And the whole of Paddington Station was backed up. There was at least an hour queue for taxis. The Underground was obviously closed, and I arrived at the station, and I had 20 minutes to get to the John Lewis head office. It was 3 miles, and so I'm not fit. I wasn't fit at all. I was dressed in a full suit. I was holding like a milkman's thing with juice cartons in it. And I thought, okay, well, 3 miles, 20 minutes, I can run that. I was fit once. I can definitely run. So I opened Google Maps on my phone and I got out of Paddington Station. I'm sure we all know Paddington Station. I ran up the slopey bit where all the smokers are and I set myself off towards John Lewis. And I was running and it was going up. So it went from 3 to 3.1, 3.2. I was absolutely knackered. And when it got to 3, I thought that, well, this is because I'm going around buildings and the distance will be because as the flow flies, the crow flies. And so it'll start going down quickly. It got to 3.4 miles and I realized that I had my phone locked on the wrong axis and I was running in the wrong direction. And I had that moment of another one of the defining moments in my business where my heart was just like, oh shit. And I ran with less luster, and I got to Buckingham Palace and stopped and decided to take a PR shot of a juice carton in front of Buckingham Palace because I thought I'm going to get something out of this. I've still got that picture, and I'll share it with you if you ever want to see it. There's a slightly forlorn, wet me looking miserable. I arrived at John Lewis head office 15 minutes late, 20 minutes late. And the buyer came down, and it was a junior buyer called Anna, and she came down and she said, Mr. Bennett, I'm so sorry, but you've missed your slot. You only had a 15-minute slot, and but good news is we'll put you on for the one next year. And my heart fell through the floor. I didn't have next year. There wasn't next year. There's not going to be a next year. If I don't get a deal away soon, I am bust. I am losing my house. I'm going to have nowhere to live. And all of these thoughts were raining through my brain, and I was just petrified, and my face dropped. She saw, she knew. And all through my business career, there's been these people that have opened doors for me and told me to walk through and helped me out. And we've all seen them, those people that appear. And she said to me, this means a lot to you, Mr. Bennett, doesn't it? And I didn't, as much as it did mean to me at the time, I could muster nothing but yes, of course. And she said, okay, sit down. I will see if I can shorten their lunch break and you can go on this afternoon at 2 o'clock. So I sat down in John Lewis head office, and I'm not sure if any of you have got dogs, but when a wet dog is drying out, it generally smells like a wet dog. And I think I was smelling more like a wet dog, a sweaty wet dog. That smell, I could smell it off myself. And as I warmed up, the receptionist gave me cups of tea. And generally at this point, I was a complete charity case. Everyone was looking at me going, that guy's lost it. He's lost his shit. What are those soggy juice cartons doing? And I say it with a smile now, but I still remember the whole feeling, the feeling of sitting there going, oh shit, like, God, I smell, I'm like, anyway, came to 1:45 and she came down and got me. And I then found myself walking into a room full with an arc of buyers. So 6 or 7 buyers in a ginormous room with an arc, and they were pissed off because their lunch break had been made shorter. I was sitting there a little bit, spun out and confused by it all. And I did a terrible pitch. At one point, one of the buyers said, but it's just a charger in a carton, right? And I was like, yeah, that's what it is. It was awful, terrible pitch. We've all been there where we're stuttering over our words, where we don't know what to say. We get and everything's coming out wrong, and you can feel people looking at you, and you can feel what they're thinking. They're thinking, you idiot, just get out of my way. What are you doing? You're ruining my day. Anyway, off I went back to. I walked back to the station in the rain because I wanted to save the money, and I got on the train, went home. And when my partner asked me how it went, I lied and said it was great. So following morning, got into my office 7:30. I think, right, making my list of retailers who I'm going to call. I rotated them so it wasn't the first person didn't get called every time. There was about 28 of them. And mid-morning, I get a phone call, and it's Annie from John Lewis. I'm like, "Hi Annie, how are you?" Knowing full well what was coming. And she said, "Hi Joe, yeah, look, listen." And Annie is still the same with me today. She said, like, "We're just going to cut straight to it, no bullshit here." And I was like, "Okay, great." She said, "How do you think the pitch went?" And I said, "It was awful, wasn't it? Dreadful." And she said, "Yes, terrible, worst one we saw." And I was like, "Great." And she said, "But we like the brand." And there was a silence, and a silence where you can kind of, you know, those moments that freeze. And she said, "And we want to launch it this Christmas." And again, another silence. And I was just a bit like, holy shit. And she said, "And we're placing an order for 5,000 units. And I genuinely was just agog, flabbergasted. I couldn't end the call fast enough because I didn't want it to be a joke. I didn't want it to be a lie. I wanted it to be a like. So she raised this with me before, but apparently I said, "Okay, fine, thanks, bye." And then sure enough, an hour later, all the forms came through setting up with John Lewis. And that afternoon, I got my first order ever for Juice mobile phone accessories, which was 5,000 units into John Lewis. I had agreed to launch in Christmas, which gave me effectively just under 4 weeks to manufacture, fly over from China, make and deliver these products that were still conceptual. There was a huge amount of stress and hassle. It culminated in myself and my warehouse manager finally having something to do, and my finance girl sitting up all night late November in my warehouse in Coventry, where it was snowing in November 2012. I remember it vividly, and we had oscillating fans on either end of the folding table where we were folding cartons and creating and I remember the fan oscillating towards you and you feeling warm, and then oscillating away and you feeling more cold somehow. And doing that for 16 hours, we made and delivered 5,000 juice cartons with plugs in there. Apple juice was green, obviously.
Handmade, all of those.
Sorry, yes. Yeah, we had the plugs, but we had to fold the cartons. There was... So people talk about blood, sweat, and tears. There was blood on some of those cartons from the fingers, and one of my family members found a carton with a speck of blood on it. But let's not. This is recorded, and I will deny it. But yeah, there was a small amount of blood, maybe on the launch stock, and it went into store. First week of December, it went into store, and we delivered our first shipment. So anyone that sold anything ever to anyone knows that it's never about sell in, right? It's about sell out. It's never about getting the stuff in. It's about getting the stuff out. And so we waited for the first week. So it was something like the 10th of December, 2012. It was exactly that day. And I called Annie and I said, "Annie, hi." And she answered the phone, by the way. It's amazing that I didn't think her phone had a ringer on it, but she answered the phone straight away. And she said, "Oh, hi, Joe." I said, "Hi, Annie, I'm just calling to check in on the sales." And she said, "No worries, I'll log into the system now." And I heard a tapping of keyboards, and then she said, "Oh, I think there's a system problem. Let me give you a call back." And I was like, "No worries," hung up the phone. Now, system problem means there's no sales, right? System problem means that they hasn't sold a thing. And And that's what I took from it. I was like, shit, instant process. Right, get back to my list. Let's get going with Dixon's. Let's get going with O2. Let's get going and push. A very long hour and a half later, and he calls me and says, "Oh, hi, Joe. Yeah, I've got to the bottom of it. It wasn't a system error. You've sold 2,500 units in your first week." And Juice was and still is the fastest selling consumer electronics brand to ever launch in John Lewis. It flew off the shelves. Consumers totally got it. They resonated with the brand. They saw it though and bought it in droves. John Lewis instantly reordered another 5,000 units. And we started the process of trying to deliver them in. In December, I broke even though I was carrying 50 grand's worth of losses. But hey, I didn't lose money in December, and I'm one for celebrating even the tiniest things, right? So I was like, I didn't lose money. We had a Christmas break as a day, and then we were back in, and first week in January, I got a call from O2, and O2 said, "We saw what you're doing, John Lewis, really liked it. We'd like to arrange you a meeting," and we arranged across all 450 O2 stores later that month. In February, we got a call from Dixon's Car Phone. We've seen what you've done in O2. We would very much like to arrange you, and we ranged across 550 stores. Throughout that year, we got callbacks, we got phone backs, and we started to get people to take notice. Throughout the year, we carried on. I mean, you know, you're a startup business, you know how it feels. We were losing money, we were making it. I remember in April of 2013, we made £700, which I was delighted by. And then in May, we lost £800. Just going through those processes. But came to the end of the year, so the end of July 2013, and we paid back all of our 50 grand losses, and we'd made a net profit of £45,000 in our first year. Fast forward, Juice now outsells Apple in the UK market and the Irish market. We are a multi-million pound business. Instead of having my house on the business, Juice has bought me a number of other houses. The people that had faith in me at the beginning have reaped the rewards also, and we are looking forward to expanding the Juice brand and business into America with Apple over the next 12 months. We are number one de facto in the UK and the Irish markets. We're selling around 2.5 to 3 million units in our market every year. So we are, it's not just me anymore, there's a ginormous team of really talented people who are doing it, but our ethos has remained the same. Do you know what? Just get yourself into your office, get on the phone, call people, and do it with a smile. And if you do that and you keep smiling and you keep pushing, then believe me, you will get there. And Juice has been a wonderful journey for me. And so I would love to answer any questions that any of you may have on anything that I have just said. Thanks.
What a phenomenal story. Thank you, Joe. Absolutely phenomenal. Yeah, let's have a round of applause first. Brilliant.
Hey, thanks, guys.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. That really was an inspirational story. So I'm sure there's going to be lots and lots of questions. So who wants to kick us off with a question?
Not a question, but I have never felt so emotional listening to any speaker ever. You really got to, and everyone was putting that in the chat. I don't know if you could see that, Joe.
I can't see it, no, but I
actually welled up. It might be because I'm menopausal as well. But I actually welled up at one point. It was like watching an Oscar winner or something. I'm sure everybody, I just wanted to say that. I've never been moved.
That's so kind of you. And do you know the thing is, the thing I've learned over the years is the truth has its own power, and I went through that, and it was shit, you know. Like, it was, I say it with a smile now, but that day when I was driving with those silent tears falling down my face, when people become successful in business, they don't talk about that enough. Everyone looks at people that are successful in business and go, well, they just had a great idea. Then they did it and it all happened and it was all lovely. No, it's not like that. It's actually people.
No, that was the bit. That was the bit. The image of you driving home with tears coming down your face.
Yeah, it was a horrible hour drive, and they flowed the whole way. Don't worry. And I was just, yeah, really difficult, you know. And people should understand that businesses don't just spring up and look wonderful, and they're kind of, they don't. It is blood, sweat, and bloody tears, and generally. It is real blood, real sweat, and real tears involved. But thank you for your kind comments. I really appreciate it. I'm passionate about talking about my business because I did it, and I did it from a basis of knowing nothing. I Googled so much, and you know, you've got people that, and all I had that other people perhaps don't have or didn't value. I haven't got a business degree. I haven't got all of that stuff. I've just got bloody a pig-headedness and a drive that I didn't give up. And but yeah, thank you.
Can I just also add that you need to pass back real kudos and credit going to your partner or wife, because there's not many of us that may put up with somebody doing that. So.
Oh my God, like, you're so right. And do you know, the benefits from the one of the first things I did when we had our first big year of profit, she was very, very well rewarded for everything, all the faith. Do you know what? Have faith in me, and thanks so much. I mean, yeah, I really appreciate that, and you never forget that. You never forget those people that open the doors for you and let you go on your way. And yeah, I'm forever grateful, and they were an inspiration to me going through the process also.
Yeah, brilliant. No, good. Yeah, Andrew.
Yeah. Hi, Joe. I was interested on the other side of it, actually. Did you say you were importing from China?
Yeah. So we buy, we manufacture in Dongguan and Shenzhen, and we bring it through via sea freight, which is.
How did you go about sorting all of that out from the start? Did you have background in it, or did you just Google everything and go? I
Googled it. So yeah, I didn't know. I Googled how do you import stuff from China. And then I called a shipping agent, and they said, yeah, don't worry, you need to get it delivered here. And then in a bit of the story I missed out was in the April of 2012, I went to China for the first time on my own on a sourcing trip. It was the most miserable trip. I mean, a cheap hotel in the UK is bearable. A cheap hotel in Dongguan is not okay. I slept with cockroaches and lorries that, like, rattling my room and all sorts of stuff. But it was only £4 a night. Yeah, it probably wasn't worth that. So I went to China to find the factories that could supply me the product. And then I Googled how I get them over and spoke to a freight agent and did it. And yeah, I still use that freight agent today. They laugh.
Yeah.
They don't get to charge me quite so much anymore. I know what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Well, thank you.
Very good. Anyone else? More questions?
Yeah, I've got one actually. Yeah, so Jolly, great story, fantastic. Really enthused. I mean, when you said you've got to do the you had to make so many phone calls, did you have sort of scripts, or did you sort of make it up on the spot and just beg and plead?
I think you probably can answer that question for yourself, having seen me talk for the last 20 minutes. Like, I blagged it. I blagged it every single time, and I was trying to. Do you know, one of the things that I tried back then in business development, and that I still do, my team do today and works, is engage with the person. So I tried to find out about as much as I could about the buyers every time I was approaching them. And when I emailed them or when I called them, I would try and link something in to that that they would be interested in. So there was a woman who was a buyer at Dixon's, and she was hugely into musical theatre, like loved musical theatre. You could see from her profile that all of her interests were musical theatre. And so the subject title of my email when I was trying to get into her was "I Dreamed a Dream," and I was trying to like link into something. So it was all cold and no scripts, but it was there was research on the people that I was approaching in the background, because no one ever, it's a haggard saying, but it's so true, that no one ever remembers what you say, they only remember how you make them feel. And so I wanted to try and make myself stand out to them in that respect. But yeah, no scripts.
That's great, Joe. Thank you. Yeah.
Yes, Sarah.
If you had to do it all again, and that would probably bring you out in a cold sweat, is there anything that you do differently, Joe?
Everything. Absolutely everything. Like what a ridiculous way of starting a business. So with my experience, don't start a business with your own money for a start. Risk someone else's money. Like, for God's sakes, don't. Open-ended personal guarantees are the fodder of idiots. Don't risk anything you can't afford to lose. Why did I employ a warehouse manager who, by the way, is still my warehouse manager today? Military Mick has been a very loyal, he's a little bit busier than he used to be. But why did on day one, I didn't have any stock, didn't have any customers. Like, what was I doing? So I do everything different. If I did it again now, it wouldn't be, it'd be just as stressful, but not. I wouldn't be tripping myself up along the way as much.
I hope Military Mick has been promoted to at least Major Military Mick by now.
Military Mick has done very well over the years. He's a very, very cherished member of staff, completely overpaid, but absolutely gets the spirit of the business. And he was there at 4 in the morning in bloody that warehouse with the oscillating fans. He would smile about that as well.
Yeah, brilliant. Jenny, you had your hand up, I think.
Yeah. When did you take? So, and I've, obviously you've now got your own website. You sell direct to the public. You've got an e-commerce thing. When was this? What was the decision then to go from the non-retail into being able to do your own direct sales? And was that never an avenue that you thought of right from the beginning to start going in that route rather than trying to get into all the retails?
Do you know what? That would have been so much more sensible to actually go direct to consumer with a brand. And of course, I absolutely should have done that. And no, I didn't think of it. And so when did we decide to do that? We've been playing with direct to consumer over the last few years. It's challenging because our retailers don't want us to. So we're really well established with all of our retailers. And if we start driving like mad towards D2C, they will be, they're not going to like it. But we're starting to do it more and more. As we became a brand and people started to know us, we had to have an e-commerce function. And then we needed to be able to have somewhere where we could field our customer service. So it's something we're pushing more and more and more now. And yeah, for all of the obvious reasons we want to do it, you make so much more money. You're in control of your own destiny. No one can fire you. You can do your own thing, but it comes with its challenges all the same. And also, frankly, I'm still not very good at it. I don't really know how to do it as well as we are learning, but we're not as good at it as we are at supplying retailers at the moment.
All right, Helen, yeah.
Am I allowed to ask why you were fired 5 times, or is that a bit too personal?
No, not at all. It's various reasons, and it was always because the nub of it. There was lots of different things on the HR documentation, but it was always because I argued with the CEO. Always because, and there was one firing. So this guy called Rod Miller, who's now the global CEO of a $30 billion corporation, and I worked for him, and he bullied his PA so badly, he made her not be able to speak and panic, and he laughed about it. in a board meeting when he did it to her. And I noticed that, and I was incensed. I hate a bully, so I threatened to throw him out of a window. And
I
the next,
love you now, actually.
next week, I got a letter from HR saying, even though I was 300% of budget, he was concerned about my performance, and I got fired. Yeah.
Even being fired is an inspirational story then when it's coming from you.
Yeah, there were other things as well, believe me, that weren't so inspirational, where I just refused to do things. So another one was when I was a director of a business, and my division of 30 people, the owner brought in a policy of hand scanning. So whenever anyone arrived at work, they had to hand scan in and hand scan out. And he was doing it as a way of checking timekeeping. And I hated it. I was like, don't do that to people. So of this business of 400 people, 30 people refused to hand scan, and they were my 30. And we were like, no, we're not hand scanning. We'll do our job. We'll do the business. So it's all about the revolution really with me. And so I got fired there too. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. So, more? Any more questions?
I've got a question following that, actually. Then.
Yeah, I guess.
So, obviously, you're very values driven, and it always fascinates me, kind of the core values of an organisation. Partly because that's what we sort of do. So, Sister, what would you say are kind of the top 4 or 5 kind of core values at Juice?
So it's interesting, isn't it? Because you get marketing spiel that goes out that Hannah spreads all over the world for us. That is about the pillars of Juice, and I'll avoid them because there's some truth in them, but it's not really who we are. We practice extreme candor. So that's a positive way of saying absolutely no bullshit. We say it as it is. And that is so tell the truth. And we do that to our customers as well. So tell the truth, like deal in the truth. We believe in like number one for us is we're going to be honest with each other. We're going to be honest with our customers. We're all trying to do the right thing. Another really important thing to me is having a nice time. So we want to enjoy what we're doing. Like, we work really bloody hard, and we know that we have to work hard in order to get ahead. We know that it's not always pleasant. We know that sometimes you feel huge amounts of pressure, but we work hard. But we want to, like, you can laugh with someone. It's okay, you know. Like on a meeting call this morning, they were the first 10 minutes of the meeting, they were taking the mickey out of me, and like I won't tell you what they were saying, but it was very rude. But you know, having fun. I think another core value comes from the nemesis of the business, the inception, the genesis of the business. Sorry, in terms of never give up. Like, you don't need to give up. You know, you can just keep bloody going. And so we're a business that never gives up. We work hard, but we have fun, and we tell the truth. And I think if I was to describe my organization, that would probably do it. And it's, you know, it's not always pleasant having interactions with my business and my organization, because it's, you know, you want a nice, cozy, corporate, lovely chat. If there's no point of us being on a call, we won't be on it. We'll go, okay, thanks, yeah, I've got other things I need to do, bye. And I think everyone that works with us, we're really, really lucky to have some amazing businesses that support us, like Hannah's business, who does all of our PR. And you know, we're very fortunate, but they kind of get who we are. I'm rambling on. I suppose those 3 things would be an answer to your question.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. And I think just from listening to you, we know that that you embody those. They've certainly, it's not a case of, well, let's let's think of some core values and they're sort of disconnected from me. They're absolutely you by the sounds of it. And what I'm interested in, and I know we don't want to, you won't be able to go into all the detail, but you've given us a real brilliant flavour of the start and how it got off the ground, and we know where you are now, but there must have been a whole load of things in between that, so maybe what one or two of the big milestones do you think along that journey?
I think that I think it was a big step for us was when we tried some new products. So when we'd sold some mobile phone chargers, and everyone was like, oh yeah, great, Juice is a carton brand, but then we went into cables, and when you so we were applauded for our creativity on this one range of products. A big step for me was doing it again, and everyone's got the voices in their head. That was a fluke. You don't deserve this. You're not good enough. You can't do this. You're going to launch this new range, and everyone's going to laugh at you. It's not going to sell. It's like, so in end of 2013, early 2014, we went into cabling and launched a concept. So where we took the Juice carton concept, and then we the Capri Sun like sipper bags. I'm not sure if you've seen them, but we kind of came up with that concept and launched it. And when they sold, also we knew that it was the brand, and we knew that people got it. And so we've another big move for us was when we launched power banks, which was another category, and we practice active listening. So we've got a database of around 25,000 people that we speak to that are friends of Juice, and we ask them questions. And we asked them when we were launching a range of batteries for your emergency batteries for your phone, what would you what's the most important thing when you're buying a battery pack? What do you want to know? And they unanimously, like 85% of people came back and said, we want to know how many charges it gives our phone. We don't care about anything else. We don't care what it looks like. We don't care how big it is. We just want to know. So we launched a range of power banks on that basis to all of our retailers. And I think that was a big step for us, because we launched a power bank range called 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, based on how many charges it gives your phone. And we became market leaders from power banks from doing that. And it was that. So for me, that step of expanding into other products, and then really taking the step of listening to consumers, and not only listening to them, but believing them and doing something about it. I think that was a big move for us. And obviously there was a bit where we made $1 million in a year. That was delightful. That was like amazing. You know, when we first made our first million, it was some years ago now. And yeah.
And one more question to me, and then we'll see if there's any others. But how have you kept the culture of the business honest as you've grown and you've got so many?
Gosh, so hard. And it's all about taking your time recruiting the right people. You know, the hardest thing you're going to do in business is recruit good, solid people. So it's about getting the right mix. You know, if you want a really nice cocktail, put nice ingredients in. But if you put an absolute, which we have done, if you put some dodgy ingredients in that looked good on the tin, it can get it out quickly.
What a great analogy! Yeah, I like that. About making a cocktail. Very good. Right. Any other questions?
I just got to say, I mean, so inspiring, amazing. Authenticity wins, which is so incredible. I mean, I know you're so busy running your business, but do you go around giving motivational, you can do it presentations? Because that's basically.
I want to run my business, so I'm a bit like I like talking to people in business, but Hannah's always trying to get me to go and do stuff, and I love running my business. I love doing it. And so I am going to go and do some talks at my old technical college. So when I got kicked out of A-level business studies, I went and did it on my own at Tech. at Whitney Tech. So I'm going to go back to Whitney Tech and go and speak to the business studies students there and say, hey, do you know what? Like, you don't have to listen to them, and you can go and get on with it. Like, do your do. I came from here.
Amazing.
I hope you've still got controlling shares so you don't get kicked out of Juice, because that's.
Oh, yeah, do you know what? I've never sold any shares. I own 100%. Maybe it's not fair. So yeah, I'm no VCs. No one else has got anything. No. Just me.
Brilliant, Andrew.
Thanks, Kevin. So I know I've asked the question already, so hopefully not running out too much time. But you're obviously at the forefront. You have lots of professional advice in what you're doing. How do you see the sort of retail market developing? Obviously, we see John Lewis maybe cutting a couple of stores. How do you see your business will evolve, and what's the vision for it?
It's interesting, isn't it? It's all online at the moment. Everything's moving to online. Amazon is going to win. Get behind Amazon. Build your own e-commerce, direct to consumer, and retailer stores, I think, are going to be more of an experience than somewhere you go and buy. I think that's the way it's going to pan out. Just the pure convenience of the way online is structured now. I think there'll be a long reticence that may last forever to go back to the high street. So I think the high street will change significantly. I think that retailers need to focus on experience and showcase and demonstrations and stop trying to go after the sale in store. I think that's the way it's going to go. And I think John Lewis should now close 95% of stores and just go online. Like, come on, guys, do it now, or you're going to end up in trouble. So, yeah, I think retailers change forever. But it's about but there are certain things that certain industries like clothes or well, actually, all fashion retailers need to have somewhere where you can. And also home stores, where you want to go and see the sofa or feel the cushion. I think you just can't do those things online. So that's where the experience, I think, will come. But for tech and certainly tech that I'm in, all of our efforts are online, photography, copy, videos, engaging online rather than CDUs, FSDUs for displays in store.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, so I think time for, well, maybe you as well, Matt, but I think that'll be it. So Stu.
Okay. So obviously COVID has, kind of put has had its challenges with kind of shipping things over from China and stuff. So have you had to diversify kind of your sources, or have you been fortunate enough to have enough stock to kind of weather the storm? And where do you see that kind of going in the next sort of three years or so?
Interesting. So supply chain has been my biggest pain in the arse over the last 3 months, and we've been using the train. I'm not sure if you're aware that there's a container train that comes from China. Right. Don't tell anyone. But basically, we've been putting our containers on a train. It takes about 2 weeks. It's somewhere in between the cost of air freight and sea freight. But we've been doing that to stopgap. But yeah, it's been a nightmare. In terms of where it's going, I think it'll all be fine. I think it's going to settle down over the next 3-4 months when everyone gets used to Brexit. Everyone gets used to the turbulence in China at the moment. I think that tail end of this year, start of next year, I think you're going to see everyone getting a bit calmer with it. I don't think manufacturing is going to move away from China. I think that you'll see, as we are seeing a diversification in electronics manufacturing to Vietnam, which is happening now, and the supply routes are being built from Vietnam. So yeah, I think it will all settle down in summary. I think that it's been a bloody nightmare. It's cost us a huge amount of money more to weather through it, and it hasn't been helped by we've had our best Q1 we've ever had. We've sold more product this last 3 months than we've ever sold before in January, February, March. So which is great, which is also a nightmare when you're struggling with supply chain. But, yeah.
Not quite the gravy train, but maybe the juice train at least. All right, Matt, what about you?
Yeah, just a quick one really. I think obviously as you've shown, you've shown some great resilience throughout your growth. And I suppose, did you have a vision to where you wanted to be? And was there a point you thought, right, we've done John Lewis, we've got our first 5,000 product, we just stay as this size as we are because we're making money, and I don't want to take any more gambles, or just thought we're just going to go for it, hammer and tong.
Never, ever. Like, no, it's not in my nature. So the mission statement is to make Juice the largest mobile accessories brand on planet Earth. We want to be number one everywhere. So no, like we're not staying still. And I'm as much as I bemoan the fact I risked everything, like risking everything has got its certain buzz to it as well. So no, we're not done, and no, and I can't stand a lifestyle business. I know that they suit lots of people, but not for me. I need a rocket ship. So no.
Brilliant. Good. Well, on that note,
Can I just say one time? I was going to say, is it where I think you should tell everyone what you've been doing with packaging? I know that sounds like dull, but I think what you've been doing with packaging is really, really interesting.
I'm really scared my battery's going to run out. So just stay there. I'll plug it in and then I'll tell you my packaging. Just 1 second. Thanks, Hannah.
That's okay.
That'd be ironic, wouldn't it, if his battery
Need a power bank.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3, or 5 though. Is that the 4?
Yeah.
Here we go. So packaging, we had a board meeting at the end of 2019, and we worked out that we were putting out 1.2 million pieces of single-use plastic into the market every year that was landing in landfill. 1.2 million pieces of little pieces of plastic like this. And we were all a bit devastated, and we all looked at it like, God, do you know what? We've got this beautiful, successful business. It's the wrong thing to do. And so we started at that point a project to try and find a way of removing all single-use plastic from our packaging. And we wanted to go a bit further than that, where we wanted to, rather than just make it recyclable, we wanted to make it recycled. So we weren't producing any new plastic, and we wanted to go and use post-consumer waste, the stuff that we put in our recycling bin that gets taken away magically every week. We wanted to create packaging that was from that and then make it recyclable, so we could make a cycle of packaging going round and round forever without producing new plastic. Really, really hard to go and do it. But in May last year, we became the first tech brand to remove all single-use plastic from all of our packaging, all completely recycled, all completely recyclable. And we saw our market share go through the roof. And you know, one of the things that I've spoken about before is that have some faith in the public. Do you know, there's so many bloody noisy, bad people out there in the world. There's so many people that are shouting, saying nasty things, and they somehow get amplified. When actually we released a product that was doing a range, all of our products were doing the right thing, and consumers chose to buy that product over other people's products. Consumers are good people. You know, the vast majority of people out there are nice and want to do the right thing, and have that faith as a business person. So we removed all single-use plastic, and we haven't produced anything with any single-use plastic since then. And that's millions of pieces of recyclable packaging that's going round, and we've had huge success for it. It cost us 250 grand when you're talking about the startup funds from the business. That was the extra cost that we had to stomach, but we got that back threefold in the increase in sales, which we didn't know we were going to get. But you know what? People are good, and people want to do the right things, and give them the opportunity, and then they will support you. And now our next project is to remove all plastic. So we're investing heavily in plant-based polymers. So we're looking at creating and launching with Apple the first plug made out of corn, which will be home compostable. which is I can't tell you how many corn plugs I've had melt in my house. We are looking to be the first brand to do that. I suppose that links back to the question, really, are we ever going to stop, or is that enough? Are we going to just trade nicely? Like, absolutely no way.
Brilliant. No, fantastic. Well, that's been absolutely brilliant. Thank you very much, Joe. You've definitely left us buzzing, going back to the bead again. So absolutely brilliant. The quote that I got for today, I didn't really necessarily think too hard about it, but the quote that I got today to finish on is from Theodore Roosevelt. If you could kick the person in the pants responsible for most of your trouble, you wouldn't sit down for a month. So there we are. Right. On that note, thank you very much, everyone. Have a fantastic month, and we'll see you in between. But again, and thank you very much, Jolyon and Joe. Thank you. That's superb. All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Joe. Cheers.
Thanks, amazing.